Okay, let's get started. All right, so we're going to use the player aid, and I will pull out my cards. My cards start in the recon phase, by the way, but we're going to start with receive objectives phase. And this is the very first thing you do in every game. There is an objectives deck that you will have shuffled. So you just draw 2 cards. And these are your objectives for this particular turn. And you can put them anywhere. So I'm going to just make sure I'm not bumping anything with my camera here. And we'll put them here. And you can see there's 2 objectives. And then there's what happens if you succeed. And then there's what happens if you fail. And it's always some form of punishment if you fail. So that's never good. So the first one is we need to have 2 close air support hits in Sector Foxtrot. The second one is we need to have 7 successful raids conducted this turn, which is a tall order. So that means 7 of our 9 raids that are available have to succeed. Although bear in mind that some of these other ones count as raids too. Some of them, not all of them. And then obviously good things happen if we succeed. So it's very important to succeed. I've obviously never played, but I'm getting a strong impression that you don't want to fall behind on these. Okay, so the next thing we do is we do the recon phase. And so I know it might be annoying, but I'm going to go through my note card and then we're going to go through the player aid and just see how it's different. And if anything, it's just a great reminder of how to play the game. So basically, we do recon where we repeat until we fail. It is considered to be a 6 for all missions, our value. So there's no you don't actually use your planes. These are planes that are invisible, abstracted off the map. So we have some recon going on, and they all have a strength of 6. So we're going to draw a card, and then there's an air intercept on the card. So these resolution cards, I'm just going to show you the bottom card of the deck. So this bottom card of the deck has an air intercept, ground defense, attack resolve, Warsaw Pact reinforce, and NATO reinforce value on it. And then it has an event section. So this is a lot like the D-Day games in a way, where you only use the top part for certain phases of the game and you use the event part for other phases. DVG does this too. And then the immediate just means that the event would happen right away. And then this 21 is used for applying damage to your planes. And we don't want to use that number. So hopefully you'll forget what that number even means, because we're never going to get damage, right? Yeah. Okay. So basically what I just wrote down says we're going to have a 6 strength reconnaissance mission. Every reconnaissance mission we repeat until we fail. And every one is going to have a strength of 6. So if I were to draw this card with a 7 on it, we would automatically fail on the first try. And so it's pure luck, folks. And then there you can see there's a 2. So that one we would automatically pass. So basically we need a 5 or less in order to pass. Now, I do appreciate that they wrote it right here on the thing, is that you need a 5 or less. You may keep performing recon missions until one fails. So there's that. It's on my card because I wrote it down as well. And there's 3 types of recons you can do. And so I have those written down here, and I'm pretty sure this says the same thing. So yeah, so right here it's telling you that they're all a 6, and there it tells you what the 3 kinds are. So we'll read what the 3. So there's battlefield surveillance. And what that does is that lets you, because we have to draw an event at the end of the turn. It lets you draw an event card, look at the event, and decide whether you want to keep it or move it to the bottom of the deck. So it lets you manipulate the event phase. If you only get to do this once. And so once you succeed, you draw your card. If you put it to the bottom of the deck, that's the only time you get to do it. So you still don't know what your event's going to be, but you at least made sure that it wasn't going to be that one, right? So this battlefield surveillance is a way to just peek at your events, okay? The next one is locate headquarters, and it allows you to do this thing called a decapitation strike. You are not allowed to do a decapitation strike unless you succeed at this. And so that's where the special decap strike is. And so if you were to succeed, what we do is we keep it off the map, I guess, and then you put it on to show that you succeeded at the reconnaissance mission, and that's now available as one of our possible raids. And that, by the way, will count as a raid towards this raid card. Okay, so right now that decap is not available because we haven't succeeded at a recon mission. Then the third one is called a staging area, and it's necessary to do a FOFA mission. Now, see, that's the thing. You might be thinking, well, what are all these missions? And that's where the rules are great, but at the same time, you're like wondering, well, what's this? Well, what's this? Well, let me just show you. The decap mission, the very first hit that you do on that mission, you get to take any card you want from this deck, discard pile or otherwise, and remove it from the game. That is an awesome ability. So your first hit on a decap mission is you get to get rid of one of these pesky cards. So for example, if we want to always succeed at reconnaissance missions, I might want to get rid of this because it has a 7 intercept. So I think there's better cards to get rid of, but just giving you an idea. So I can say I want to get rid of this card. It's out of the game forever. It never comes back. So if you do this 10 times, you could get rid of, theoretically, 10 cards from the deck. So very, very interesting mechanic. I'm quite impressed with it. That's probably the number one thing that made me excited about this game, is it lets you manipulate the deck in a way, and I thought that was really cool. So anyways, that's what sorry for that. That was my table. So the first hit you do lets you remove that card, but every successful hit after that is also awesome. And it doesn't tell you, oh, here we go. Subsequent hits allow a resolution card to be redrawn. So what you can do is, when you're drawing a resolution card, and let's say it has a value on it that you don't like because you're going to lose or whatever, you can look at that card and then decide I don't like it and then draw another one. And so for every hit beyond 1 in a decap mission, it lets you draw a second card. And so if I draw a second card, then I would remove a hit from the decap. So basically the decap mission is a pretty cool way of mitigating the game. Like it. I like Pizza Steve. That's, what movie's that from? Okay, next one, like I said, is the locate staging area. It lets you do what's called a FOFA mission. And that's a follow-on forces attack. It's a ground attack, and each hit reduces their reinforcements. So it's a way to prevent the Warsaw Pact from getting reinforcements. And so you must succeed in this reconnaissance in order to be able to do this mission. So what does that mean? You can do one for every letter. So every one of these streams or thrusts. So let's say I'm going to do echo. I can do echo, and let's say I succeed. You see this little FOFA box? I would put one of these on to show that I'm allowed to do that mission there because I succeeded at a reconnaissance mission. And then let's say I keep going, right? Because you keep doing recon until you fail. So then I'm able to get this one in, and then this one, and then I fail here. So that means I can't do any more. And so for my raid phase, I can spend 3 raids doing a FOFA mission here, but I couldn't do a FOFA mission there. So the recon phase gives you those 3 options. The battlefield surveillance is a once per turn thing, so you only get to do it once. The decap strike is a once surveillance you get to do just once, and that just lets you do a decap raid or not do a decap raid. And then from there, you got many raids you can do because there's one for every thrust, and that's the FOFA raid. So recon phase is what allows us to do that. And then after that, we will do our air planning, and that's where we assign our planes to the various raids, and then we would resolve the raids, and there's a lot going on there. But let's just stop here and do our reconnaissance phase. So first thing we want to do is study our thing again. I don't need to do reconnaissance for a close air support raid, so this is something that doesn't require successful reconnaissance. This one, I need 7 successful raids, so I think we're okay from an objective perspective. I think I like the idea of being able to cull the deck, get rid of cards. So we're going to try to do a decap strike. So we're going to do whatever raid that is. It's called a locate headquarters. And so all we do is we just draw a card and see what happens to us. And yes, this is where the luck in the game comes in. And I couldn't tell you what the odds are. I know there's a lot of cards that are more than 6. I can tell you that much. So let's draw. Ooh, that's a good card. Look, we got a 0. Oh my gosh, that was a good card. Okay, so we passed. And so that just goes to the discard pile. And then the decap strike comes on to show that we are now able to do a decap. Okay, so now we get to keep quote unquote raiding. So, here's where I need to strategize a little. This is a huge spot that's worth 3 victory points, and that's worth 1. This thrust is important to us. We don't want to lose it. This one, we would lose 2 early on, but you're only going to lose 3 total if you lose the whole thing. So this one's, not arguably also important. This one is really important, but only at the end. I mean, you can see we have like a cushion before we start losing points. Here you can see we can lose 4 points. Up here, there's a really big 3-pointer and then a big 2-pointer at the front of the line. And there you can see there's 4 points at the front and then a big 3-pointer at the back. So that top row looks pretty important. I would say arguably they're all important, with these ones that only have 3 deep being probably the most susceptible, but we can only pick one. So let's just start at alpha. We're gonna go do an alpha one. And so we're gonna do what's called the FOFA. I could do the event check one, but I'm not real excited about that one right now. I wouldn't know what a good event is versus a bad one. I guess, yeah, this one would be a bad one, right? Attack resolve values or have next turn. That would actually be a bad one. I guess I would know. But I think it's probably more important to be able to do FOFA raids. Now, here's the other thing. We don't have all of our planes yet. All these planes are still waiting to come. So being able to do a whole bunch of FOFA raids sounds great, but I only have so many planes in the game right now. And so there are other raids we also want to do, and not just the FOFA raid. So I don't want to make you think that FOFA is king in this. It's not necessarily king. But the one other thing it lets you do is that you flip the reinforcement card face up, so we get to see what the reinforcement card is going to be. And let's just try it once. We're going to do the one for alpha, so let's go for it. And there you go. I got a 9, so it didn't matter what I picked. We failed. So our reconnaissance mission failed. That's all we get to do for this phase. And yes, it is pure luck. But I think that's just how it works. So our reconnaissance didn't do too hot on this first turn. So now we're going to have to go a little bit blind with it. Okay, next up is the air planning phase. So my card says we can only use basing units, which means we can only use the airplanes that are here. We can't use any that are repaired or damaged or destroyed, of course. We can have no more than 5 on a mission. And then no more than 3 to the primary. And then 3 raids may target the same box or track. And then can assign 2 to the OEW. So yes, let's talk about that. A box, of course, are these things. And this whole thing is considered a track. And then this is a box. And so I can have multiple raids doing a FOFA here, for example. Well, that's a bad example because we can't do FOFA, but I can have multiple raids doing a CAS, and it says I can have 3 raids doing a CAS at that location. So I'm not sure why we would want to, but we could. We can really pile on in one particular spot, and we're limited to no more than 3 on these boxes or track. So if I want to do 4 raids, I need to go somewhere else after I do 3 of them here. So now if we look here, it says you can assign up to 5 units per raid. So I've already noticed that I wrote a bad terminology because a mission and a raid are 2 different things. So I'm going to say no more than 5 to a raid. And here's what I mean by that. A raid is this entire thing. A mission is each one of these. This is a mission, that's a mission, that's a mission. This whole thing is a raid. What it's basically telling you is you can only have 5. But no more than 3 on the primary. So if you put 3 on the primary, that means you can only have 1 on each of the other ones. So let's talk about this. It's telling you can assign PGMs here to get double. Assign pilots here that will let you basically draw another card if you don't like the first one, but you have to discard the pilot. And then from turn 2 on, we can do what's called an OEW mission, which automatically succeeds. Now, what's an OEW mission? That is, it's funny, it's not listed here, but I listed it on mine. See, I'm superior. I'm sure it's listed somewhere else. But an OEW mission is available turn 2. You must assign 2 planes. You must have at least 1 attack rating, air-to-air. Automatically succeeds. It moves the OCA marker 1 to the right, and it counts as a raid. So it moves this little marker here, 1 to the right, and when it moves to the right, you flip it over to show that you succeeded with an OEW. This marker can move 3 to the right on any turn, max. But it can move a 4th time due to OEW. And then after the turn's over, this flips back over and it loses its value. So the OEW is like a temporary bump, if you will. We're not allowed to do OEW this turn. So there's nothing we can do. And that's what this OEW escort is here. So we're not allowed to do that this turn, not until turn 2. Now, what the heck is the OCA track? I wrote that down as well. I thought you would never ask. Thank you for asking. It's like I staged you in the audience and you were just waiting to bring it up. All right, so the OCA it supports air intercept, which is the enemy trying to intercept us and destroy us and disrupt our raid. So if we have a high OCA value, then that allows us to reduce the number on the card, so we have a higher chance of succeeding. The other thing you might be wondering about is the dead one is another track that moves to the right. So you see that dead track? That's how many units that have been destroyed, and for every one that it moves to the right, it supports ground defense. So when we do a raid, there's the primary mission. Those planes are going after the target, right? The primary target. The air escort is dealing with any bogeys that come in and try to intercept us. This OCA track reduces the bogey's ability to ruin our day. Okay, so our air escorts will get a bonus from this OCA track. And then this SEAD, I don't even remember what it counts, but it's the anti-aircraft SAM batteries that are on the ground that are shooting at you before we get to the primary target. So here we have to do suppression. So we're sending in, our Harriers or whatever, the A-10s, and we're trying to do ground suppression and take out their anti-aircraft guns so that way they don't hit and disrupt. So if this guy hits us, the whole raid is aborted. If this hits us, the whole raid is aborted. So do you see what I mean? The only way for a raid to succeed is you have to get past these through 2 phases, and then and only then can you actually provide hits to the target, okay? So this helps with the air intercept, and the dead track helps with the ground intercept, the ground suppression step. So that's where, at first this is really overwhelming, and you got to understand how everything connects. But that's what's going on. And so with this air planning phase, we're not allowed to put units on this, like I said, so we can't move it to the right because of this. However, we can move it to the right for other reasons, and that's where we're going to get into all these different raid values. Okay, so, and like it said, you can assign PGMs if you need to help double your values. So this one is going to take a little bit because we have to do some planning, and I've never played this game before, so so with bearing in mind that we can never have more than 5 planes on a single raid, no more than 3 to the primary box, the primary mission. 3 raids may target the same box or track, and we cannot assign 2 to the OEW until turn 2. And only use basing units. Okay, so this is where our objectives come in. We need to do 2 close air support raids, period. Now, those same 2 that are used to satisfy this count as 2 towards the 7. These are not mutually exclusive cards. So if I do 2 close air support raids here, that's 2 out of my 7 that I need for here. Okay, does that make sense? So I need to get 7 raids in. And so I have to figure out, can I possibly do 7 raids with the limited number of planes I have? I think this one's going to be a tall order. Let's talk about the missions, which I wrote down here. And as I explained, when you do a raid, there's the air intercept, then there's the ground combat. That's where the anti-aircrafts are shooting at you, and then and only then do you actually do the primary hit. So that's how the raids are going to be resolved. But let's talk about the different types of raids we can do. And you can see that a lot of them are listed here, but I have them also listed here. So their first one is the close air support raid, and every hit will increase our attack during ground combat. Now, what does that mean? After we do our raids, this unit and NATO and that unit are going to fight each other. There's going to be ground combat between each of these, and there's possibly going to be advancement from Warsaw, or we can disrupt them and reduce their strength. So the CAS, every hit we put in here, so let's say I do 2 hits, this 2 gets added to their strength of 2, and now that's worth a 4. So this 2 becomes a 4 because I have 2 hits there. So that 4 gets compared to this 3 plus whatever we drew on a card. So that stuff on the card is also nasty. So that's how this plays out, okay? So the close air support is a very valuable raid, and they want us to do at least 2, and we might even do more than 2. So it's a really nice one. Now, it says you must have a NATO unit in the thrust, meaning if they conquered everything here, we don't get to do one. You have to have at least a blue chip here. And then I wrote in parentheses here, it uses the ground stat, which is the middle number there. So that's the stat that you have to use to resolve this. Oh, and hey, by the way, if you had the same curiosity I did, each of those planes, you can see a nice silhouette of a plane. It actually explains to you what the different plane types are. So there you can see, obviously the stealth back in the 80s was the F-117. The Brits used the Harriers. F-16s were used by many. Tornadoes for Germany and Britain. And then there was a F-4F. There's a Wildcat right there. And then Jaguar was used by the Brits. And we got an F-4F on Germany. F-111 for America. I think it's an old Vietnam plane, isn't that? Anyways, Tornado, another F-111, 2 F-15s, the CF-18 for Canada, and then the Alpha, and then, of course, some A-10 Warthogs there. 3 of them for America. So, America. Okay, so that is what the different planes are. I found it curious, and now you get to 2. Obviously, I'm going to forget. I already forgot what the Canadian one was, but it doesn't matter. The numbers are all that matter. So the ground value is the middle one. So if we're going to do CAS strikes, it's going to be the middle number. So I think the number of CAS raids we're going to do is going to be largely dictated by how many planes do we have that can actually do some damage to close air support. Now, here's the other thing to bear in mind. How much hits do we do when we actually get to the primary target? It's your value divided by 5, and it's truncated. So this, if this was the only plane doing a CAS run, I would do 7 divided by 5, I would get 1 hit. And no matter what, you always do 1 hit, even if you had a 0 in your strength. So you always do a minimum of 1 hit if you successfully make it to the target. So the fact that I have a 7 here is awesome, but unless I have 2 7s, which gives me to 14, I'm still only going to do 1 hit. I might as well just send, you know, an F-15 or whatever, which hardly does any damage to ground. It would still do the same number of hits. So it gets really powerful if you can stack them together, right? These two make a 14, and then maybe add another one for a 15th, and now I'm doing 3 hits, etc. So we're probably going to have to spread it out if we want to meet the 7 successful raids criteria. So we may have to just live with the fact that we're only going to get 1 hit on our raids. Because if I'm stacking 3 planes in 1 primary mission, I'm not going to have enough planes to do 7 raids. Okay, next is the dead. So each hit moves the dead marker 1 to the right, and this uses the strike value. And it supports ground defense. We talked about that. That's the suppressing of their anti-aircraft. The OCA, each hit moves it 1 to the right. It supports the air intercept, and that also uses strike. And we're actually, what we're doing is we're striking like airports and grounded airplanes. This isn't air-to-air combat. This is striking ground targets that are at, you know, key facilities. And then a maximum of 3 hits per turn. So you don't want to do more than 3 hits. Now, the good news is the number of hits you do is very easy to calculate. It's whatever you see divided by 5. There is no random, there might be. But anyways, that's that. Then the OCA, we talked about that. The decap, which is, we unlocked this. We talked about this. The first hit allows you to remove a card from the game, which is great. And you don't need to have, and it uses strike. It has a max of 3 hits. And then every extra hit allows you to draw a second card if you don't like the first. So the decap strike might be something you want to do first. And by the way, we get to do our raids in any order we like. The FOFA will reduce their reinforcement values during the reinforcement phase. And we're not eligible to do FOFA because we failed our reconnaissance. And then you can see the air escort uses the air-to-air value. The SEAD uses their ground value. And then the OEW here uses air value, but it automatically succeeds. So, and then of course PGM will double any value on a plane, and you're allowed an unlimited number of them, but only 1 per plane. And then the pilot is 1 per raid, so you can't have more than 1 pilot on a raid. You assign it to 1 plane, and then of course it lets you draw 2 cards, like we said. So that's the missions here. So we need to figure out what we want to do. So no matter what, we got the decap. Every hit we do, it uses the strike value. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our stealth plane as the primary. Now, one thing I didn't mention is when you're doing raid resolution, the stealth plane completely ignores the air escort, air intercept phase, which is this one. So they don't need an air escort because they're stealth. And then when you get to the ground defense, it completely ignores that as well. But you do draw a card, and if either the air intercept or the ground defense is exactly a 10, then the stealth plane is destroyed. So this is a high risk, high reward thing, but it's meant to be used by itself. And if we get unlucky and draw a 10 from the deck, then we're destroyed. So here's my thoughts. The decap strike lets us remove cards from the deck, right? So what are the first cards we're going to remove from the deck? The ones that have 10s on them. So we want to get to a point where our stealth bomber is basically untouchable. And that's what I want to get to. So like this one here was a very crappy card. As you can see, it has a 9/9, but that would not have hurt the stealth plane at all. So I think we want to make it so our stealth plane can do missions, because look at this. Him all by himself is going to do a raid. That counts as one of our 7. Okay, and it does tell you, what raids are. So we can always do a dead raid or an OCA raid as well, and that's going to move our tracks to the right. So we got to do at least 2 close air support raids. Where do we want to do them? I think we want to do them here, because this has a strength of 5 and that has a strength of 5. So these are the 2 strongest Warsaw Pact locations. So I think we want 9 and 8. So we're going to do 2 raids for sure, here and there. Okay, so raid 1 and raid 2 is going to be a close air support for Charlie and Delta. Okay, so now we go here, and we have to decide. I need a minimum of, well, it doesn't matter what plane I use. I automatically do 1 hit. So if I use these big 7ers here, that's great, except I automatically do 1 hit no matter what. So I may not want to try to use my big guys on that. So then what do I want to do? I think, therefore I am. These use ground. I'm not going to worry about who's primary. Let's talk about escorts and ground support. These 2 guys are going to support the ground. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to assign 1 to help us avoid the, they're going to help us with suppression. And so those big 7 numbers are actually going to make it successful for us. So then we have the anti-air stuff. And so this Canadian fighter is actually the best one we have. And then we have a couple of F-16s, so I'll put that one there, like that. And so we still need to put 2 on the primary, but I just don't know which 2 yet. Okay, and also, always bear in mind, we do a minimum of 1 hit, so I don't have to worry about the number of points on it. So then, what else are we going to do? That's 3 raids, right? I still need to do 4 more if I want to hit this major air offensive. I don't think I have enough planes, but let's see. I want to do OCA and dead, because I think getting these markers to the right is going to help us. And so they both use strike, which is the 3rd number, you see. So this is an awesome strike value. So let's get that one in there, okay? And then looking at the other ones, I don't have an awesome strike value for the other ones. And, ooh, we only have 1 good strike plane. The decap uses strike. Yes, so that's where our stealth bomber comes in. So I guess we're going to use a 444 there. So then we need to do air escort, and so we're going to put our best air escort there. And again, I need 2 more planes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would still need to do 2 more raids. And they're going to have to be close air support raids. There's no other type of raid available. So even though I listed a whole bunch to you, you can only do 1 OCA raid, 1 dead raid. So let's see if we can pull this off. I don't know if we can. So, for example, these 2 guys would be this. These 2 guys would be that. And see, we don't have enough. Let's say, well, first of all, this one would be there. Ground support is this. Those are the ground support planes. Okay, so let's start filling in. So we need 1 there, we need 1 there. We already got our 1 here. And let's put 1 here. I have 3 planes left. So I could do one more ground support like that. That's the best I can do. Or, since I know I'm not going to do 7 successful raids, I can say screw that and then double up somewhere else. And I might want to double up somewhere else, is what I'm trying to say. So where would I double up? Obviously, the more hits I get here, right now this is only going to get me 1 hit. I would have to get over 10 points in my strike value in order to get 2 hits. But I can easily do that here because I have 8, right? So I can put this guy there, and now I'm at 11, which will give me 2 hits on the dead track. This is a 3, and you can see here that these 2 planes added to that is a lost cause. So this is going to do 1 hit, and that's it. That's all it's going to do. This is going to do 1 hit, and I can't add another plane to it, or otherwise I'm going to have to do this phase. If there's any other planes with it, then you have to do these phases, and this gets counted as a normal plane. So then we go up here, and these use the ground combat values, which we only have a 3 and a 4 on. And you can see this is a 1, 4, 4. And so if we do that, that's an 8. That's still only 1 hit. But I can put 3 planes on the mission, so I can make that one do 2 hits. So that's the idea. We have no pilots, so I can't add pilots. And as you can see, we're going to get a whole bunch more planes on turn 2. So we are going to get help. I think for this first turn, we're going to have to take one in the shorts because we can't do this major air offensive card. It was just a bad card draw for us. Okay, so that is the air planning phase. So hopefully this game's making some sense for you. And then we move on to raid resolution. So now we have to, in the order we choose, resolve these raids. And we get to do air intercept, we draw cards, we, so anyways, let's talk about it. Okay, first thing we do is we would do air intercept. And that's where that's where they assemble their bogies and we have to get rid of that. That's what these planes in the middle are dealing with. Then we would have to do ground defense, and that's what these planes deal with. And then on the back, this is when we hit the primary target. And like I said, always a minimum 1 hit. You divide by 5, and that's the number of hits. If you used a PGM, you can we could use a PGM. Let's think about that before we start resolving. That will allow us to double. Ooh. So what do we want to do? So I could use a PGM, for example, on him, and he'll get 2 hits in. That's what I'm talking about there. If I use a PGM up here, I would only get to an 8. But then I can add this plane to it, and, there's things I can do like that. I'm using 3 planes here just to get 2 hits. The other thing I can do is I can put my better planes, like this has a better ground combat, but I'm putting them here so we can succeed better. Same here, like I put my best units here to make sure we pass the ground combat. But if I put them there and I put a PGM on them, I could get a lot of hits in. So why am I not doing that? Well, first of all, when we do the air-to-air, remember, we add this to our strength. Right now it's a 0. We need to get this thing moving to the right in order to help us. And once this thing's moving to the right and we have enough points in here, then we don't have to necessarily use our best guns here. Does that make sense? So right now in this early phase, when we're getting a 0 bonus, we need to put our best planes on the air escorts and suppression tasks because otherwise we're screwed. So if I am going to use a PGM, I think I will. I'm going to spend 1. And we're going to add a PGM to him. And, well, maybe I'm not. You know what? I'm happy with just getting 1 hit with him. I'm going to add a PGM to... Oh, these guys only have 3. Well, hold on. Dead and OCA use their strike value. This one's an 8 strike. Well, we're definitely doing a PGM to him. That would be a 16, folks. That's a 16, and that's 3 hits, by the way. And that's all we need is 3 hits. We can't do more than 3 on that. So just the PGM alone puts him to 3 hits. So then I can put, for example, this plane somewhere else. And if I put a PGM on this, that would be a 6. I'm going to put him up here. And then put a 444 there. And then I'm going to put this 3 out. So 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 3 is 10. That's enough for 2 hits. And then that's 8 points. And if we spend another PGM to double that one, that's 8 plus 4 is 12 points. And then if I spend another PGM, why not? I have no idea how important it is. That's 8 plus 8, that's 16 points. So then we would be bumping this by 3 and that by 3. Because here's the deal. If I can get these bumped all the way up, I don't need to spend points. I don't have to do planes on those missions ever again, because they don't like go left. They only go right. And so once we get enough points in this, then we can focus our planes on raids and actually disrupting the enemy units instead of, so I'm investing, right? I'm investing and I'm going to try to get some return on my investment. That's my logic. I'll stick to it. I've never played before, so if I lose miserably, I'm going to blame it on that. Okay, now raid resolution. Let's start with this guy. I think this is the most important one to start with, and also because we get to skip these 2 phases. So I just have to draw 1 card to see if I get a 10 on air intercept or ground defense. If I do, I'm destroyed and eliminated, and I'm praying that on my very first turn of my very first game that does not happen. So let's go. Draw the card. And there you see, air intercept and ground defense was an 8 and an 8, which is actually a very bad number. Ooh, look at that event. That's a good event. Okay, maybe getting the ability to look at events is nice. But anyways, it doesn't hurt us. So we succeed at our mission. Yes. So we do a decap strike. And so what that means is, what does it mean? What does it mean? It means that we get to remove a card. And we get to pick any card, and it just says that if you pick it from the deck, you have to shuffle. So let's peek at these. So you can see this is a 10 and a 10. Nasty, nasty. But this event is good. So let's just hold on to that. Keep going. Oh, there's another 10-10. This one is also a decent event. See, I'm sure that's how this game's going to work. There's a 10-10. I would say that's the least attractive. There's another 10-10. When resolving air escort missions next turn, draw 2 for each mission, using whichever one is lower. Oh, that's good, actually. So that's a good one. And we keep going. There's a 9-10. So you can see there's a lot of 10-10s in this. And I'm going to get rid of this one. I know the event's good, but the 10-10 is bad, and I'm going to draw a 10. I'm drawing cards to resolve plain stuff way more than I'm drawing cards for events. So I'm just going to put it over here to the left out of the game. And then I shuffle the deck. So pretty interesting mechanic. I already like it. I was really concerned that this was going to just be a total Oregon Trail where I'm just going for a ride and it just tells me what happens to me. But this is fun, being able to make choices like this. I'm already liking this. And I saw a lot of people in the War Game forum on Board Game Geek, not on Board Game Geek, but on Facebook. I'm in a Solitaire Wargamers group, and they talk about this game all the time, and I do see the appeal. It doesn't have experience points like DBG does, Remember, I'm a dungeon crawler by heart. I like experience points. It doesn't have that, but I'm digging this game. This is, I feel like I'm making meaningful choices. And so it doesn't mean that I'm not going to take it in the shorts, but I do think I'm making meaningful choices. Okay, so putting it down, and let's resolve another raid. So he succeeded, and he was undamaged, so he lands back in the basing box. So there's no like repairing or anything necessary. Okay, so next. Okay, so if we do the dead, it's going to help with this check. If we do the OCA, it helps with this check. So which one do we do first? We're going to do the dead. And here's why. We're going to do the OCA, and here's why. The OCA actually gives a value right away, as you can see, for every hit. Whereas the dead is like 0, 0, so you have to like spend a lot of points into this before you even get a net value. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we have to resolve air escort. So we're going to draw a card, and then the formula is the air intercept on the card minus the OCA has to be less than our air value. And of course, PGMs double the rating. And if we succeed, we proceed. If we fail, the entire mission's aborted, and then we have to draw for damage. And somebody does always take damage. If the air intercept is somehow less than 0, we auto pass. So our air intercept number is a 5. So we have like, if the cards are evenly distributed, we have a 50-50 on this one. So let's draw and see what happens. And we get an air intercept of 10. So in other words, we suck. We fail miserably. This 10 is way higher than our 5. And so what happens is we fail the mission, and we even lose our PGM marker, which hurts even more. Or do we? That is a good question. Draw a resolution card, compare numbers, inflict a step loss. You know what? I'm going to say for now, I don't lose it because I didn't ever make it to the target. So I will give myself a PGM back. But that's a good question. I don't think it's addressed. Oh, it was addressed. It's just in the PGM section. You lose the PGM no matter what. Oh, what an awful rule. Okay, so now we draw, and see this little number 4? That is what we use. So we pick the plane that's closest to the number 4, this one, because it has a 5 on it. This has a 12, that has a 23. This guy took a damage, and so he now has this damage stripe. And he would go here if I want. He can go here, or I can choose to put him here and fly him at half mass. And then, of course, everybody else makes it back safely, but the entire mission is aborted. I honestly don't know the strategy here. It costs, as you can see, resource points to get him back to tip-top shape. Since I have a minimum of 1 damage, I mean, I can throw him as a primary on a mission, but the problem is if he takes damage a second time, then he's destroyed, and that actually costs even more. You can repair destroyed stuff and then make it appear here, but that costs even more RPs. For now, I'm going to just put him in damaged and see how this plays out. So next thing I want to do is this OCA. So again, we have to do the air phase, and I'm very nervous. And I drew an air intercept of 6. This is a 5, and we failed again, and we just lost another PGM. This is not starting out the way I wanted to. And yes, luck is screwing us over. Now, if I would have put the PGM on this guy, I could have drawn a second card. You remember that? So when the first card failed, I could have drawn a second one. But the thing is I would have used it on this guy when I failed, which would have failed again. So I guess theoretically this one would have eventually passed, maybe. Who knows? But I actually lose 2 PGM. Oh my gosh. This one I really needed to pass. And unfortunately, I screwed the pooch. So now I'm going to draw. And look at that. That was another 8. I still wouldn't have passed. 27 is the number. So I have 2, 6, 32. This guy takes the damage. And these come back. So once again, I fail. I have yet to succeed on a single mission. So now we got to do the close air support. And this is where it matters. So CAS lives matter. And we're going to do air escort. And I failed again. Again. See, my value is a 5. I'm putting my best guys out there, folks. There was nothing I could do. And you saw me shuffle. So I fail again. And I lose yet. Nope, no PGM lost in this one. And then I draw a 39. This is a 35. This one takes the damage. And then I go to this one, and raid 2 failed. And I draw here, and I got a 10. My gosh. That is the worst chain of luck. I'm drawing again. Look at this. That's the next one. That's the next one. Then, that's the next one. That was the biggest string of crap ever. Okay, I'm drawing a card for the damage. I drew a 19. So it looks like our 20 takes damage. And I think putting all these guys in a damage pool is a very poor choice because I don't think I'm going to have enough research points to do anything. Okay, so raid resolution was a resounding failure all across the board. So then we do resolve our objective cards. So this one says we lose 2 RP. So what you do is you go to your RP marker here, and there's actually a negative value. And you flip it over, and you lose 2 RP. So then the next one says lose 1 RP for each raid under 7 that does not score a hit. That would be 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are at minus 8 RP. Knowing that, folks, I think I would not have put them in the damage marker. I do know that. That is information that was available to me on the cards. I'm not going to have RP to repair my guys. So we're just going to go half-mast. And this is a awful, awful start to the game. Okay, next. We now do ground combat. So after we supported our ground troops, we now have to do ground combat. So what we do is we start in alpha and we go in order to Foxtrot. Every time we draw a card and we use the attack resolution. So I'm going to use an old card that's in a discard pile. We're going to use this attack resolve here. Okay, so then we add that attack resolve is our number. So we want a good number. Then we add the rightmost NATO troop cohesion. We add the number of hits in our close air support, which is 0. And then that's our total NATO defense. Then we compare it to their value. And if their value is greater than ours, then we're destroyed and they advance. And they can score victory points. If our value is greater than theirs, and by the way, equal is a win for them, then they lose a point. And if we somehow double them, or they're half of us, then they lose a point and we actually advance on them, and they would retreat. It can never be less than 1. The Warsaw Pact can never lose their starting space. And then if we do advance on them, we get to put a new NATO troop out, but it's only going to have 1 cohesion, so 1 strength. We adjust any victory points for or against. And of course, if they're in the start space and we have double their value, they get reduced by 2. I think, remember, they can't ever be below 1. So that reduced by 2 thing, I think, is going to be not as wonderful as it sounds. Okay. So we start in alpha, and you can see there that it's a 4 versus a 3. So we have a attack resolve of 2. So that 3 plus 2 is 5 for us. So we have 1 more strength than them, and so they get a beat down to 3 because we had a higher strength than them. So they lose a value. So if anything, this crappy start of ours, it looks like they're also going to get a crappy start as well, because now we move to the next one, and you can see I got a 2. And so 3 plus 2 is 5 to their 4. They lose 1. All right, so good news so far. So now we get to their 5. And you can see we add 5. That one was really good. And so, hold on. If we added 5, that puts us to 9. We were almost double. So this 5 becomes a 4. And then we have a 5, 4 here. And you can see I got a 2, which is enough. So this 5 becomes a 4. And then it's a 3 versus 2. And I got a 2. So far I'm mentally keeping track. I don't think I've ever gotten less than 2 yet, which is good. That's a good thing to remember. Okay, so then we go to this last one, 3 versus 2. And we got a 2 on that as well. And so their 3 gets reduced to 2. So in our defense, pun intended, we won across the board. So we at least didn't lose ground on them, even though our planes just took a pounding. Okay, so what is next? Next is the reinforcement phase. So what we do is we go back to alpha again, and we start here. And there are cards here, and the one that's off the camera to the left is called alpha. So we draw that one first, and we flip it over, and see this WP reinforce? It's a 4. Yes, you read that correctly. It's a 4. And so they add that to their cohesion. So this 3 is now flipping and becoming a 7. So our little victory is not going to last very long. So now we go to Bravo, and you can see that they have a 4. So maybe one of the cards we want to remove are the ones that have high reinforcement values. So he becomes a 7. Now we go to Charlie, and it's a 2. So Charlie becomes a 6. And then we go here to Delta. It's a 3. So Delta becomes a 7. Then we go to Echo. A 1, thank goodness. So that one only becomes a 3. And then Foxtrot is a 1. So it goes to 3. And yes, the love just keeps pouring in. Okay, so so then it says, okay, First of all, there are shuffle cards in the deck. If I were to draw a shuffle card during normal combat, I would take everything from the discard pile, shuffle, and then draw again. Okay. If for any reason a shuffle card ends up in the discard pile, it's no big deal. If the draw pile is ever empty, then you would shuffle and draw, normally. So there is a special rule that if you get a shuffle card, because remember you put these face down, so you don't know what they are. So if one of those was actually a shuffle card, then when you get it, you don't actually shuffle, but the Warsaw Pact gets 0 reinforcement. So it's like a total bonus for you. So you sort of want the shuffle cards to end up there. And by the way, that's what this little FOFA thing is FOFA would have reduced those numbers. So every hit we have here would have reduced whatever number we drew. So when you saw us draw that 5 reinforcements and we had a FOFA of 3, we would have reduced it down to 2. So that's how you keep them from getting stronger. But right now our planes are worthless. I mean, absolutely worthless. I'm not happy about that. Okay, so now we draw one card, and this is our card. So we want this to be really high. In fact, this last card would have been perfect. See that NATO reinforce? So we got an awful card, of course. The NATO reinforce is 2. So on the entire front here, we get to increase our units by 2 points. So I can do, 2 points on just one unit, or I can spread it out. It doesn't matter. I can do it in the rear. I can do it in the front. I mean, and please don't take that the wrong way. And I could do anywhere I want, any NATO marker I want, I can assign and divvy out my 2 points. So I'm looking at these two that just jumped up to a 7. So I'm gonna make this one go up to a 5. And I'm gonna just put the whole 2 points in one of them, out of the hopes that they might survive next round. I don't have a lot of hopes in that. And then it says that our air reinforcements go into the basing box. So all of our reinforcements per the scenario setup is now in the game. And we did get some decent guys, but I'm not sure they're going to make a lick of difference for us. Although we got some nice 8 air defense ones, so maybe we can succeed at a mission for a change. Yeah, what an awful first turn. Okay, so next thing we do is we do random events. So here we draw the card. Now, if for whatever reason, some cards say it doesn't impact us until next turn, that's when we would resolve it. Some of them, as you know, if we did the battlefield surveillance, we could put the card here. So this is the event you would do. But we don't have either of those, so we're going to draw a card. And you can see we have an awesome event of no effect. So that at least helped us. Now we're on the resource point phase. So we get 1 resource point for each of the following. Every Warsaw Pact unit that's still in the start box. So that is going to be some significant points for us. Every major city, and I'll show you that in a second. And then if the dead track and OCA track are maxed, which they are not. And it says pilot cannot be purchased if it's already used. Those are out of the game, but these ones are not out of the game. Research points can never be greater than 10. If after doing this, I'm still less than 0, I get to bump back to 0. So it's just a mercy rule. And then I can spend research points. So here's how it works. I can spend 2 to rebuild a destroyed plane, and then it goes into the damage box. I can spend 1 to move from damaged to repaired, and then I can spend 1 or 2 to go from repaired to here. And here's how it plays out. It costs 2 if that plane was already, so if I move from here to here, and then also in the same turn move from here to there, it's going to cost me 2 to rush. It's like a rush order expense. If it was here last turn, then it only cost me 1. And then it's going to cost me 2 for every pilot and 3 for every PGM. So the PGMs are expensive, folks. And I lost 3 of them and got nothing for my efforts. A little angry about that. So what do? I have to give myself points first. So as you know, it's A through F. So it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then every major city, you can see this one says plus RP. So that's 1, 2, 3 for Amsterdam. Oh, hold on. There's more major cities. I need to really pay attention here. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. I'm making sure I didn't miss any. So it looks like there's 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a whole whopping 2 research points, which I can choose not to spend this turn if I want. I'm not going to spend them this turn. So I'm going to stay at 2. And that ends our first turn. So no, sorry. There's a turn in phase now. First thing we do is all full strength units go to the basing box. Oh, actually, that decision of going here or there is made now. I did not realize that. So I could not have repaired these guys this turn anyways. So very important. I'm very sorry I misrepresented that. All these guys that were up here in the missions, I was supposed to leave them there. They don't come back to these boxes until right now. So my apologies on that. I will fix that in the future. The OEW step, if it was performed, reduce OCA by 1. Okay, then we have to draw a card for each space and order. If the air intercept is even, reduce the marker. So these markers actually can get reduced. I'm not going to draw cards for either of them because they're already as low as it gets. Next, if the Warsaw Pact victory points are over 20, we draw a card, and if the card number is less than 20, that's the same card number we used for applying, damage. If it's less than 20, then nuclear war starts and we lose the game. And then lastly, if it's turn 1 through 6, and if the Warsaw Pact in turns 1 through 6 has already advanced all the way to the end, then they score a victory point for every thrust line that they've reached the end. So now that ends our turn, and we are moving to turn 2. So I'm at 1 hour and 7, and that was with a lot of rules explanation. So I hope you can appreciate that the turns will go fairly quick. Okay, so what's my assessment after 1 round? This is supposed to be the easy mission. And I'm just getting my ass handed to me. And I have no mitigation of that. I assigned my best possible units to every escort and to every ground suppression I could. I gave my best possible units, and it wasn't enough. So what's the right word for that? I'm a little disappointed. I feel like I should have at least gotten something. Did I get the worst card draw ever? I don't know. But if the next round ends the same way as the first round, I'm going to rapidly diminish in my enjoyment of this game. I mean, I knew this was going to be a little bit of a luck fest, but that just felt extremely punitive. And I don't know what to do differently. I mean, the only thing I succeeded at was my stealth mission. And with the way that turn went, I'm surprised my stealth plane wasn't destroyed along the way. Now, if we look back at this card, this was a really wonderful one to get rid of because all these numbers were bad for us. The 1 for the NATO reserve, the 5 for their reinforcements, 0. I mean, these were all bad numbers for us, the worst possible. I get that the event was good for us, but I'm really happy I got rid of that. Anyways, stay awesome. I will see you in just 2 seconds.